Fala galera, welcome back to the channel everybody. Today we're going to be going through the UFC 299 fight card and giving our predictions. This card is absolutely stacked, so let's jump right into it. First off, in the early prelims, we've got Joanne Woods versus Moroz. Wood is 16-8 and Moroz is 11-5. These two fighters fought each other back in 2015 and Moroz won by first round submission. So in the first bout of this UFC 299 card, we're taking Marina Moroz. The second fight on the prelims is CJ Vergara versus Asu Almabayev. CJ is 12-4-1 and Asu is 18-2. Asu is on a one-fight win streak in the UFC and CJ is 3-2 in his last 5. Personally, I think Asu is going to get the win in this one. Next up, we have the Taekwondo Wizard of Robles versus Josh Parisian. Robles is 4-0 and making his UFC debut. Josh is 15-7 and is 2-3 in his last 5. Personally, I think Robles is going to get the win in this one. Next up, we've got Mikel Pereira versus Mikel. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. Pereira is 29-11 with 2-0 contests and Mikel is 19-6. Pereira's on a 5-fight win streak, whereas Mikel is 3-2 in his last 5. I think it's safe to say that Pereira is going to get the win in this one. The last bout on the early prelims is Cutelaba versus Leans. Ion Cutelaba is 17-9-1 and is currently 2-3 in his last 5, whereas Felipe Leans is 17-5 and on a 3-fight win streak, winning 3 of his last 5 fights. This is a tough one, but I'm taking Leans by decision. Next up on the prelims, we have Pedro Munoz versus Kyle Phillips. Pedro Munoz is 20-8 with 2-0 contests and Kyle Phillips is 11-2. I think Kyle Phillips is going to win this one. He's 3-2 in his last 5 and Pedro Munoz is 1-3 and 1-0 contest in his last 5. It should be worth noting that Pedro Munoz has only fought top 10 opponents in his last 5 fights, whereas Kyle Phillips, this is his first fight inside the top 15. Personally, I think Phillips is going to get the win in this one. Next up, we have Gamrot versus RDA. Gamrot's 23-2 and 1-0 contest, and RDA is 32-15. This is going to be an amazing fight, I think. Gamrot is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and RDA is 3-2. Personally, I think RDA is going to get the win in this bout. Next up, we have Caitlin Chukagin versus Macy Barber. Caitlin's 18-5 and Macy Barber's 13-2. Caitlin's 4-1 in her last 5 fights. And Barber is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. This is going to be a tough one, but personally I think Barber is going to get the win. Next up, our feature bout on the prelims is Curtis Blades versus Jolton Almeida. Curtis Blades is 17-4 and Almeida is 20-2 on a 6-fight win streak. Curtis Blades is 3-2 in his last 5. Almeida is one of the best grapplers in the heavyweight division. Curtis Blades is a well-rounded grappler himself, so this should be a very interesting bout. I think Almeida is going to get the win. Next up, we've got the first fight on the main card. Piotr Yan versus Sang Yadong. Piotr is 16-5 and Sang Yadong is 21-7-1. Piotr Yan is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. 2 of those fights were against former champ Aljamain Sterling and current champ Sugar Sean O'Malley, where he lost both by split decision. Arguably, he should have won both of those. He's fighting Sang Yadong, who's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. This is going to be a great battle. Personally, I think Piotr Yan is going to get the win. Next up, we've got Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Mandalina. Burns is 22-6 and Jack is 16-2. Burns is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. JDM is 6-0. This is going to be a great battle. Personally, I think Burns gets it done as his grappling is far superior. The next fight on the main card is Kevin Holland versus MVP. Kevin Holland's 25-10 and Michael Van Page is 21-2. This is Michael Van Page's debut in the UFC, so it should be an interesting one. Kevin Holland is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Hopefully this fight can stay on the feet as both these fighters are amazing strikers, but Kevin Holland might take this to the ground using his black belt jiu-jitsu. Personally, I think MVP is going to get the win because he has superior striking. In the co-main event, we have Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus BSD. Dustin's 29-8 and the former interim champ versus the up-and-coming BSD, who's 13-1. Poirier's 3-2 in his last 5 fights, where BSD is 5-0. This is going to be an interesting fight, but personally I think the experience of Dustin Poirier is going to get him the win. Next up in our main event for the Bantamweight title, we have Sugar Sean O'Malley, who's 17-1. His one loss coming to Chito Vera. Marlon Vera is 23-8 and is 4-1 in his last 5, whereas O'Malley is 4-0 in his last 5 with 1-0 contest. Personally, I think Sugar gets this done, as I've heard Chito Vera had a bad camp. I think O'Malley will win by decision, as Chito has never been knocked down or knocked out in his UFC career. That's it from me, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments and enjoy the card. Alright, peace.